Interesting article that was shared on Zero Hedge further highlights the widespread corruption in the US government and the mainstream media's role in covering up for this sort of damaging corruption that it's rampant throughout our own government. The mainstream media's only role really is to protect these extremely corrupt uh, people in our own government. So this is what happened to a journalist that tried to expose a recent deep state program, which basically sent weapons to Syrian enemies, terrorists in Syria. This is part of a months-long investigation. It tracked and exposed a massive covert weapons shipment network to terror groups in Syria. This was via diplomatic flights originating in the Caucasus and Eastern Europe under the watch of the CIA and other intelligence agencies. This resulted in the interrogation and firing of the Bulgarian journalist who first broke the story. I'm going to read through this article. I do have a link to the full article in the description of this video, but this is concerning investigative reporter based in Bulgaria, Dilyana Gaytandzhieva. She authored a bombshell report for True newspapers, who she was originally reporting for. This is based in Bulgaria. And she found that an Azerbaijan state airline company was regularly transporting tons of weaponry to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Turkey. This was under a diplomatic cover as part of a CIA covert program to supply anti-Assad fighters in Syria. Those weapons, Gaytandzhieva found, ended up in the hands of ISIS and Al-Qaeda terrorists in Iraq and Syria. This is these sorts of programs. We've known that these sorts of things do go on, that they're facilitated by the deep state. The weapons, these terrorists' weapons, they are very often provided by the deep state, but this goes into further detail than we typically see. This article points out that while it's long understood that U.S. Gulf NATO coalition, they have armed rebels in Syria, this has also facilitated the rapid rise of the Islamic State, as the group has steady access to a, quote, jihadi Walmart, they've described it as, of weapons. In the words of one former spy and British diplomat, he coined that term. This, however, this report from the True newspaper is the first to provide an exhaustive documentation detailing the precise logistical chain of the weapons as they flowed from their country of origin to the battlefield in Syria and Iraq. Gaytandzhieva, the reporter, even traveled to Aleppo, where she filmed and examined labeled weapons shipping containers held in underground jihadist storehouses. So this journalist, she was based in Bulgaria. She published dozens of secret internal memos. They had been leaked to her by an anonymous source as part of the report. The leaked documents appear to be internal communications between Bulgarian government and the Azerbaijan embassy in Sofia, detailing flight plans for Silkway Airlines. This is essentially operated off the books, a weapons transport service which is not subject to inspections or tax under diplomatic cover. This makes it much easier, of course, to do this covertly. For the U.S. Special Operations Command, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Germany, Denmark, and Sweden. The airline has been the subject of other recent investigations involving weapons supplies for Saudi war on Yemen. In addition, the military monitoring the site, Balkan Insight, has exposed similar weapons cargo flights in and out of neighboring Serbia. Perhaps the more explosive findings involves private American companies contracting with the U.S. government to help train and equip militants in Syria. This investigative series, originally published in 2015, named military contractor Purple Shovel as the recipient of 2 no-bid contracts, totaling more than $50 million as part of the U.S. Train and Equip program for Syria. This more recent report, Gaytandzhieva's report, definitively links Purple Shovel and other private American military contractors to the Azerbaijan Silk Way Airlines shipments. One leaked memo includes a cargo manifest for multiple tons of anti-tank grenades purchased in Bulgaria by Purple Shovel, which were ostensibly designated for the official Kazanyi, the Ministry of Defense, Azerbaijan, but which never made it there. The documents, however, reveal that the military cargo was offloaded at Turkey's airbase, Incirlik Air Base, in which one of the U.S. and NATO's main command centers for covert operations in Syria. This is one of their main command centers. Though this journalist's report, the original report, is months old, this did not receive a lot of attention in Western media, particularly. This is until actually Al Jazeera featured a story recently on this while reporting on the shocking news as well, that the journalist who broke this more detailed line of shipment in this more recent report, Gaytandzhieva, she had been interrogated by Bulgarian authorities before being fired from her newspaper for the report. Gaytandzhieva said on Thursday in a tweet she was fired from her job at Trude after she was interrogated by the Bulgarian National Security, which tried to find out her sources. They asked her what her sources for this information was. She said that she first got suspicious of the weapons transferred to Syria when she found Bulgarian-made weapons at the hands of terrorists in Aleppo while reporting on the Syrian war there. She also said that she traced those weapons to its Bulgarian manufacturer, only to find out that those weapons were legally exported to Saudi Arabia, which in turn supplied it to, quote, terrorists in Syria. This was the tweet from Dilyana Gaytandzhieva. I recommend to follow her on Twitter. She has been, of course, fired from her from this Trude paper she was working for, but I would definitely look forward to any further updates from this journalist regarding her actual firing or any follow-up story to this. Al Jazeera broke this in the this months-old report in the mainstream Western media. They've belatedly highlighted the story, as Zero Hedge points out, in the midst of the current Qatari-Saudi diplomatic war, which has resulted in a general airing of dirty laundry as each side continues to accuse the other of supporting terrorism. So we're getting this more information that we didn't know earlier as a result, largely, of this diplomatic war going on. Regardless, the coverage constitutes the first time this story has entered the mainstream. While we've reported that the recent Trump decision to end the CIA covert program of regime change in Syria, this happened about a week ago, just over, it appears the apparatus for external weapons shipments to jihadists in Syria remains in place through the continuing Silk Way Airlines weapons pipeline. This was from the Al Jazeera report. It says, speaking to the organization by phone, Gaytandzhieva said, quote, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the US must stop using the cover of Silk Way Airlines diplomatic flights to supply Eastern Europe, European weapons, which end up in the hands of terrorists around the world. Diplomatic flights are exempt from checks and inspection. So, of course, they have an opportunity to get away with this, being exempt. The CIA program relied heavily on U.S. ally Saudi Arabia to arm anti-Assad jihadists, and while it appears that the White House recently ended the CIA side of things, there's no evidence to suggest that Saudi Arabia or other participating allied countries ever ceased or even slowed their part of the operations. Also, given that both the CIA and Pentagon contract with private firms acting as middlemen to get weapons to the Syrian battlefield, it is uncertain if all aspects of the CIA program have really been shut down. Likely not. Historically, the CIA has sometimes farmed out legally questionable activities to private contractors for the sake of plausible deniability. I'm sure people have are aware of many instances of this. Furthermore, the Pentagon side of the program which supplies Kurdish and Arab groups in the Syrian Democratic Forces, appears to be ramping up of late. Given the latest development of the True newspaper firing its own journalist and Bulgarian authorities attempting to locate her sources, it is entirely possible and likely that pressure is building for True to remove the story from its website. This new story, the report, which broke it in Western media, in the mainstream, at least to some extent, this has brought fresh international attention to Gaytandzhieva's findings, which is sure to increase the controversy. So Zero Hedge is expecting that the newspaper may pull this report altogether. They have excerpts from the full report. I have a link to the Zero Hedge article, which is basically a summation of Gaytandzhieva's original article, but it's worth going through. They go in further detail the exact movement of these weapons. This is to me, it again highlights the known involvement of the deep state in these many destabilization programs around the world, and the media's constant covering up for these are the exact types of things that our Western governments and our Western media should be dealing with. The media in particular should be exposing these sorts of things, and any truly independent journalist that reports on it ends up fired or silenced in some other way. So I'm following Gaytandzhieva. We'll see if she has any follow-up reports on her firing, on this story, any other related information. Check back with this channel for further updates. If you could leave a like on this video, that's greatly appreciated, and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Finally, I just point people over to my Patreon account. I'm at patreon.com/realityreader. Thank you so much to everybody that's donated so far. It makes a huge difference. Even $1 or $2 allows me to keep reporting on these issues that, again, for some reason, they seem to be they're continually buried in the mainstream media. I will follow up shortly. Leave a comment. Thanks, everyone.